So, welcome. Here we are. We're going to talk about running and running without pain. Okay? I welcome your questions. This will have a bit more of a conversational kind of thing rather than a lecturing kind of thing. One thing I want you guys to go through in your mind, survey through your body and start at the bottom and think about this. If you're going to try running or if you are running, and what part might hurt? Because a lot of people have something that bothers them. So think about your toes. Think about your feet, the balls, the arches, the heels. Think about the Achilles. Think about your calves, the inner part of your calf, the front of your calf, the back of your calf. Think about your knees, the outer part, the kneecap. Think about your quads, your hamstrings, your glute, your back, the inner parts of your legs. Think through that, and can you think of, is there anything that you know bothers you? And we can actually break this down with some detail right here, right now. So, go ahead.
It's been a while, but from what I can remember, it's usually the top of my foot and my shin.
Okay. What part of your shin? The front of your shin, like your actual
yes,
shin?
My shin.
Shin. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm glad you brought that up. So let's talk about that. That you could basically call that a shin splint. Has anyone never called that before for you?
Yes. It's when you eat more bananas.
Eat more bananas. All right. All right. So let's talk about that for a second. Now, a typical run would involve someone. Imagine there's a foot in this shoe and that there is a leg and someone's running. Okay. So imagine this clipboard is the ground and someone's running. So they take a big stride forward, they land, they roll, and they push off, and they go on to the next step, right? Landing, rolling, pushing off. So the landing there is at the heel. Okay, that's very, very common. So I want you now to picture my leg. You don't need to imagine. You can just see my nice leg here. Okay. All right. No whistling, please. No heckling. Okay. So now, where can you picture the bone of my leg is here in the front? Okay. So this is the bone, right? Now I have muscle right here. That's our calf muscle. And then we have muscle in the front. Watch, I'll flex it. See that tiny bit right there? This tiny little bit, that's my shin muscle. Okay? We have a shin muscle. Yes. It's called the tibialis anterior. Very good. Thank you very much. Okay. Now, what happens is, which of those muscles, let's put it to you this way, which of those muscles would you put your money on in, which one's stronger?
The big one.
The big one. And that will go throughout the board and it comes to your body. The big muscle is the stronger muscle. The big muscles are the ones that should be doing most of the work, by far most of the work, in proportion to their size roughly. So we've got big, strong glute muscles and big, strong leg muscles. They should do most of the work, for instance. Our calf muscle, it's way bigger, like many times bigger. The cross-sectional mass is vastly bigger than this little strip of muscle right here, right? But now here's the thing. If I take a stride forward, just like I was showing you with the shoe, and I take a big stride forward and I land on my heel, okay? Now, your body moves in controlled motions. So if I had no control with this front muscle and I take a big stride forward and I land on my heel, my foot would immediately flop down. But it doesn't. I land and I control down. And if I were to if we were to record you running or anybody running in slow motion, you'd see like the body would land and come down in a controlled kind of way. We wouldn't just flop down. Do you understand? All right, now what's resisting the flop down? What's in essence, what muscle is flexing to hold the foot up against that impact of our heel is this front muscle, okay? This front muscle is what resists that initial heel strike landing. Now, that's asking a lot of effort from that front little muscle. And so that front little muscle, it attaches all along the shin. And so when you heel strike, and that muscle flexes, and then you come down and you push off. And heel strike, and repeat, and repeat, and repeat. That little muscle on the front having to grip, and grip, and grip with every single foot strike is what is beginning to stress and hurt the bone. Okay? That is what causes a shin splint. In essence, it is a heavy heel strike that causes a shin splint. Okay? Now, if you just keep on running that way, your body is powerful and very adaptive. So if you keep on running that way and you eat enough bananas, you get enough potassium, and you probably want plenty of other minerals in there too, magnesium and calcium being very helpful as well. you'll build up bone strength. And the attachment site from this muscle to that bone will strengthen and thicken, and you won't hurt the same. Eventually, your body will just get over it, okay? But just because your body gets over it doesn't mean that's correct. So this is a key thing. My philosophy when it comes to running. So everybody, we're all welcome to have our philosophies. And you're coming to my talk, so I'm going to give you mine, okay? So I think that if you run in a way that's kind of sort of good enough, but not quite right in your body's natural strengths, you can go far, but you can't go quite as far, or you actually can't go nearly as far as if you were running with your strengths, okay? So, if you aren't running with your strengths, you're gonna ask a lot more of your body's adaptive ability. It has to divert resources towards strengthening a shin bone muscle that it shouldn't necessarily have to. It should be able to divert those resources, those calories, those recuperative metabolism that your body has to do to strengthen the muscles that should be being used, as opposed to working on healing, on tissue repair per se. Okay, you with me on this? So that's my take on it. Like you can, I kind of have this imagination of like the analogy being you can go down some roads a long way, but most roads, if you're running in bad form or form that's not quite right, most roads will end in a dead end. You'll somehow have to backtrack your way through your natural form, through your techniques, through what you're doing, and eventually you got to start again, kind of down another path, another type of stride, another type of movement that works with your body in a much more anatomically consistent and gentle way. And then you can go, it's not a dead end, you just keep on going, okay? So there you go. So it's either you're relying heavily on your body's adaptiveness, or you're just relying on your natural body's proper movement. Okay, so back to the shin splint then. So the alternative is, rather than doing this big long heel strike, requiring this to flex to counter that, instead shortening your stride and landing more in the mid part of your foot, right in the middle. Now, our arch, okay, the arc of our foot, just like any arc in any structural design, arcs bear weight. They bear weight very well, okay? And our body, our spine, for instance, has its arcs all throughout our spine. That's designed to bear the weight of our body. The arc of our foot is designed to bear the weight of our whole body. And landing on that midfoot distributes weight nice and evenly throughout the foot, okay? There's been experiments done on pressure plates that measure how much impact force and how much pressure, where it's being distributed to the foot, okay? And interestingly, they had this experiment done from people who lived in the Netherlands, Western Europeans, and people who lived in Malawi, which is a Central African country, and they don't wear shoes in Malawi, not much, right? So they had people all their lives walking around without shoes, people all their lives in shoes, and they had these people walk on pressure plates, okay? And people who have a foot and a cultural training that they can walk around barefoot, they land much more in the middle part of the foot, and they distribute the weight evenly, and it tracks kind of in the middle and up through the big toe. So it would track kind of right in the middle and then up through the big toe. Okay, so it's middle, but it distributes and then up through the big toe like this. These smaller toes aren't designed to do a lot of heavy work. They are more just stability and balance. The big toe is your major mover, because think about it, the big toe is like a lot bigger than the other toes anyway. It's where the strength is. The bone is denser and thicker, and so on, okay? So, for you, that would be a takeaway there, right? So rather than like that long stride, it's a much shorter stride. Think of it a little bit more like you are trotting, or you can even think of it like marching in place. But you march faster and then you start to lean forward. And your feet fall are much closer to right underneath you. Marching in place, and you start leaning forward, but letting your feet land really close to directly underneath you. Can you see it?
Opposite of what I was always taught in school.
Maybe so. What were you taught in school? Long stride forward, big long strides? Long strides, yeah. I would completely disagree, okay? Now, I know that there are very accomplished runners, very fast runners, gold medal winning runners, that do long strides, Now, the training that we're talking about here is for you to be able to run sustainably without pain. And ideally, run for as long as you want to. Okay? Now, I'm only 40 years old, so I don't get to say, I've been doing this for 65 years, so I don't have that wealth of years behind me. However, people who are running in those other certain ways are doing it for the sake of speed, mostly, right? They're not necessarily doing it to do it as a sustained activity throughout their life. They're trying to win a gold medal, you know, and obviously there's success in what they do. Okay, but I don't think you want to try to win a gold medal. I just want you to do it without pain, right? So shorter stride, right? Now, I know that there's people, and I myself talk about like the barefoot thing, and sometimes it means literally barefoot. Sometimes it just means a very thinner shoe, kind of like the shoe you're wearing. In fact, the shoes you'd be wearing would be ideal. Great. Okay. When I've gone running, let me give you an example. I was at Stone Mountain and I was going for a run, and it was before I changed the types of shoes I wore. And I started to hurt. I think it was my knee that was beginning to bother me. Maybe my back. One of the two or both, right? It was this, things were being achy. And so I took off my shoes because I remember hearing a story and I wanted to give it a shot too. I took off my shoes and when I was walking, and then I started to try to just gently trot my bare feet along the way. And a couple things I noticed. The first thing that I noticed right off is even though I was running on dirt, soil, I had assumed when I had my shoes on that the ground was soft because it's soil. When I took my shoes off and started running gently, I realized to my shock just how hard the ground was. Even though it was soil, it must have been thin soil. Still, I'm running on Stone Mountain, so I was running on the equivalent of stone and or concrete. You know, there was no give. Okay, but when I had my shoes on, I did not detect that intense firmness of the ground. Now, why that matters is we might assume, well, it's fine because my shoe was protecting me from that shock. It's not actually true. They've done, again, pressure plate experiments where people running with shoes on actually had more impact stress in their body. When you take off the shoes and you feel the pressure and the pain of the impact, you naturally lighten your stride, lighten your impact, and you have far less stress in your body when you can actually feel the ground accurately. Okay? Becoming more mindful and aware of what our shoes our feet are dealing with naturally spares us more impact. You understand? Have any questions or comments about that? Anybody in the back? All right. So, just give myself some balance here. Okay. So, what other parts, pieces or parts?
Top of the foot.
Top of the foot. So, top of the foot, like right in this area?
Like the bones would hurt. The top of the foot.
So, these bones here. Now, first of all, can you see where this muscle's ligament, a tendon, attaches right in here? So, this attachment site right there would also get pulled on. Okay. So that's part of the trouble that you were experiencing. And this bone area here, now there's two things that could cause it. It's still that front heel strike that would still cause that. Okay, but also it would be the weakness of your foot itself. Now the weakness of a foot will come from the shoes that we wear typically. So when we have, remember I was describing the arch, right? The arch is designed to be present and bear weight, right? But the way you weaken an arch, I don't know if anybody has any engineering background here, if you press up underneath an arch, do you strengthen the arch or weaken it?
I'm a software engineer.
Not a mechanical engineer? Well, take a guess, everybody. So let's just say I've got like a Roman aqueduct you're fighting. I'm a software engineer. Think of a Roman aqueduct with all those arches, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, and there's got that keystone right in the middle that holds the load, right? Mm-hmm. So if someone presses up from underneath the arch, are you helping that arch or are you weakening it?
You're weakening it.
Right. Okay. So you missed all the good parts. Okay.
As usual.
So when you're wearing a shoe with a good arch support, pressing up underneath the arch. The whole structure of the foot, there's muscle underneath the foot, there's fascia, which is like sinewy layers of connective, hold you together kind of tissues that move and bind you together, right? When you are pressing up underneath on those structures, on those tissues, they are not engaging. They're not like using their own intrinsic strengths, and it is creating a weakness in the foot, okay? Now, this is a double-edged sword to talk about, because if we've worn shoes with arch supports our entire life, and then we don't wear them, our feet have become used to it. Our feet are weak. And just because we are structurally made to do it, doesn't mean we can right off the bat. You know, if you take an animal out of the wild its entire life, if you take a lion from a cub and you bring it into the zoo and you just throw it a slab of steak every day, and then you take that lion as an adult, throw it back in the wild, it has no idea how to hunt. It will starve to death. Okay, so just because it has the tools doesn't mean it knows how to use them. Our body's the same way. Our bodies are a caged lion that have never been trained unless we slowly, carefully train them. Okay. Now let me have a commentary on the slow part. Have you ever noticed that your fingernails grow faster than your toenails?
Yes.
Notice this? Good. Now, the reason for that is, do you not notice, or do you not agree?
I don't think I've ever done.
Now it's time to notice. Okay, you will cut your fingernails far more frequently than you'll cut your toenails. Okay. Here's the thing on this. What your body's done is it does a trade-off. It needs a lot of durability in your feet because your feet need to be durable. Obviously, they're bearing all the way to your body all the time. Okay. So for the sake of that durability, your body slows the metabolism. So there's a density to the bones in your feet. There's also a slower responsiveness to your feet. Okay. But the thing about that is they are also strong. They bear weight well. So anyway, the trade-off of their durability versus a slower metabolism. So that slow metabolism in the tissues of your feet means you will build strength slower in your feet than you would in your hands. You'd heal from injury in your feet slower than you would in your hands. Okay, so you have to take your time. You have to take a long time if you really want to make changes in your feet structure and their strength to deal with, like the minimalist shoe running. Right? We can't just go minimalist and just go run miles and miles. You just can't do it. Okay.
That's what I did.
Yeah. I'm just throwing that out. All right, I did it too, and I also hurt myself. One thing I did is, as an example, so I started getting this idea around, I want to change my stride, right? So I was running where I used to run like we all would typically run. I'd run and I'd have a stronger stride, and I'd land on my heel and I'd come like this and like that. And so what I started to do is, without changing my shoes, I started trying to run landing right in the middle part of my foot, okay? But I had a shoe, I don't have one, I should have brought it, unfortunately I don't have it anymore. I had a shoe that was positioned in a typical way, where the heel was thick and padded, and the front, it slopes down to the front, okay? So it's as though we're on a wedge. When you're wearing a typical running shoe, a Nike, a Reebok, right? What do you got?
Brooks.
Okay. Let's take off the shoe and then demonstrate.
Sorry.
No, okay. So this is a pretty good
Don't
example.
bring that here ever again.
Yeah.
If we're looking at the thickness of the heel versus the thickness of the front, okay, and so that's thicker, right? So if you're standing here, but your foot's not flat like this, your foot's up here, so it is a wedge, okay. Clearly, there's a wedge action there. So if I'm landing on the middle part of my foot, by the shape of the shoe, that shifts the weight bearing towards the front of my foot. Okay, I wouldn't be wearing these lovely girls' shoes, but maybe I would. You never know. Right. But anyway, but that's what I was doing when I first started to change my stride, trying to land flat as opposed to on my heel. And that flat landing was shifting the weight towards my front. And in my right foot, you can see it, is, you look at my toes, right? There's a bigger gap here than over here. See that? Okay. As I was running, I injured the tissue in between these toes, where this actually swole up, and I couldn't run for, it was easily a month. I don't remember how long now, but I remember I'd go out, try to run, I'd take like 100 yards, and like, it's so hard, so I stop, and I'd go back and be all ticked off, right? But I damaged the tissue that connects these two. I don't know to what extent, but still, now by passively, these toes are like separated. Now, could I have just kind of broken apart the adhesions that should not have been there, that's possible. Because if you look at like hunter-gatherers' feet, like guys who've been running around out in the jungle, out in the Serengeti or wherever, and have never worn shoes their entire life, those guys have some wide feet, super wide feet, and no toe is anywhere near touching the other toe. They're like all separated like this. It's kind of wild, gnarly looking. Mm-hmm. They're not what us Westerners would consider, oh, those are handsome, attractive feet right there. No, they're not. But I think that's actually more accurately what human feet should look like, to be honest. So anyway, could I have broken an adhesion that shouldn't have been there? Maybe, but none of my other toes have done that either. So maybe I damaged something. Anyway, so yes, I had pain myself. Then I also had I had gone through my own process of I hurt my own Achilles from like doing too much calf, you know. I have hurt, and I couldn't run for like another month or something like that. I don't remember the time frames now, but I damaged my arch when I was a little kid, and so I always used to think, well, I had to deal with that too, where I would roll out this foot a little bit to kind of compensate for that damage I did when I was a kid. And so that rollout I do here changed. What was that?
Hurt your ankle.
Well, I luckily never hurt my ankle, but what I did do is my whole knee and hip accommodated. Everything kind of shifted out this way. So if I were running, like this would all be turned out, okay? And that turnout means I'm not engaging back here quite right, and so this is overworking. So there's all these like subtleties of this balance that goes between the left and the right, and if we mess up one little thing, it shows up. Okay, that's why I want to talk. That's why I want to jar your memory about in your back or in your hips or your knees or your quads or your hamstrings. Where do you notice it? You know. So for you, that's the finishing up on your foot. So very slowly, you wearing shoes that have less and less of a support than your arch, and shoes that let you get wider and wider around your toes, allowing your feet to move a little more natural, a little more free, and very slowly building up a little more strength, a little more strength, a little more strength. Okay. Now there's, while we're at it, there are some toe and foot exercises that are very helpful. Okay. Now with a nod to you, this part of the theme and you, the theme of this isn't just about how to run, right? It's also about how to be and use your own body overall, right? Using your whole body in a healthy way. There's a book I read called Natural Born Heroes, and they talk about this concept, which I basically totally adopted and stolen, made it my own. It's about like being fit, right? The whole point about being fit is to be useful. I don't know if you've gotten that far yet. Right? Be fit to be useful, right? You can run if you need to. You can rescue somebody if you need to. You can climb a tree if you need to. You can hop over a fence. You can crawl under a fence. You can do what you need to when you need to do it. Being useful. You can help somebody move and not suffer from it, you know? You could run 13 miles if you really had to. You could run 20 miles if you really, really had to, and you wouldn't be broken because of it, you know? So, going back to that, like you want to build functional strength in all the essential parts of your whole body, you know? And so, with that in mind, and still answering the question about your foot, there's some stuff I'd like for you guys to try out with your feet here. Okay, so I invite you. Take off your shoes and socks.
Socks too?
Sure, absolutely. Let's stink it up.
These are ooh, a little sweaty still.
Outstanding. Don't worry, we have not made smell-o-vision, so no one on the internet will be able to smell our feet. Isn't that right, people at home? There's going to be no smell, right?
I'm so sorry. I can smell them from here.
All right, so here it is. You guys all came to this class with great courage. I salute you all. All right, now, so those shoes, for instance, those are called Vivo Barefoots. Now, I've learned this through that company's website. I do not own a pair of those shoes, but I do like the brand. I'm a fan of their brand, what they talk about. So on their website, they've got this thing called toga, like yoga, but for your feet, toga, okay? So, all right, so starting off, what you want to get is full ranges of motion, as much as possible. Okay, so the first test, or the first kind of thing that you could do, is you want to try and tuck your big toe under and let your little toes come out, stay out. All right. Now, what you want to do is try to get far enough that you can actually get your foot down and even get your heel down and not actually even see your toe. This is hard. I'm not there. I've been working on it myself. In fact, to be honest with you guys, I've been working on this for well over a year. Okay? It'll hurt, but that kind of, you probably feel some stress in that joint, the big joint, but if you're doing it right too, you may also even feel like a pulling stress in your foot and even into your shin. If you feel that, that's a good sign. What that means is the musculature in here has been shortened and you are now successfully lengthening it. This is good. Okay? So you got a lot more to get that toe underneath.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so it's hard. Okay, none of this is going to be easy, right? But this is like a starting point of our
So
journey.
the goal is to get this part flat on the ground.
Yeah.
Part,
So
right?
from the side view, okay, getting the big toe all the way underneath like that, getting the heel down like that. Okay.
Okay.
I have been working on this longer than a year, more than a year. Okay, and it's still not that fantastic. All right.
All right, that's what I got.
Okay, this is a good start point. All right, so that's the big toe. Okay.
Okay.
Now, you want to have all the other toes go under.
What if we can't bend them like independently? Remember, I don't have motor control of my toes outside of my big one. They all kind of move weirdly.
Here's the thing, okay?
How do you even get
You
them?
could say to someone, I have,
Yeah, I'm gonna stand up.
like, it's not just, you're not stuck that way. That's the moral of the story, okay? It takes practice. Like someone could think it's impossible to wiggle your ears until you finally realize what muscles you need to flex and you get good at it and you can wiggle your ears. Not bad, it's there. We're seeing grimaces and pain, this is beautiful.
I can feel it on the top of the foot.
That's exactly what you want, right? There's that lengthening stretch, okay? Now, you guys, this is like a side point I want to make here,
Oh,
okay?
oh. I can do that. There you go.
All right, you're getting there.
Okay, I
You're
can
getting
do
there.
that.
Okay.
Wow.
So you guys, when we talk about tight muscles, I don't think that's a correct way to think about it. Okay, it's not about a tight muscle. It's about a shortened muscle. Okay, muscles muscles go full length and then they shorten themselves. So what you're feeling isn't tightness; it's muscles that are chronically shortened. So anyway, the little toes underneath. And then let the big toe alone stay out, and then you're going to try and get your foot down. And all the toes are underneath. Okay, this is not bad. This is good.
I heard.
Yeah,
that sounds
the
like-
cracking, yes. Okay?
Okay.
Yes. Very good.
And what does that do?
All right, so what that does is that, and when you have a full, it does a lot, to be honest with you. Okay, so the first thing it does, I'm going to give you a heady thing, okay? Your brain pays intimate attention to every joint's movement and position. It pays very close attention to it. In fact, there are whole sections of your brain dedicated to that awareness.
And what is
Huge chunks.
Called?
What part? What?
What
Brain?
is that that awareness called?
That awareness is called proprioception. Okay? You can look that up. All right? Proprioception. It's your sense of yourself. It's the sense of your positioning and your movement. Okay? Big chunk of the back of the brain, like basically all the back of the brain is responsible for like that movement. There's other big chunks of the brain that are responsible for that sense. So in other words, your brain is committed a lot of resources to these kinds of awareness. Now, if you do not move your joints, any joints, in their full ranges of motion, they are not fully singing their song to the brain. Okay? It's like a choir that is half-assing it. Okay? And the conductor is like a little bit pissed. Like the brain's the conductor, and the choir is every joint. And if they're not fully singing, full volume, full pitch, full range, it will disrupt that whole chorus's experience. Okay? So your brain needs, let's take this to the extreme. If we could hypothetically cut off all signaling input from your joints into your body, if there was no input from your body into your brain would go into a coma to never return. Okay, that's the most hypothetical extreme. Okay, now taking this back into more instead of black and white, in the shade of gray, like like all of those inputs that your joints are providing enliven the brain, give it more awareness, more control, more health. Okay. There's a reason why people who move around and bear weight and do things with their body live longer. It's not just their fitness, it's also the input and the influence on the brain and neurology itself that's making someone live longer because of it. Okay? That's why people who you can actually measure someone's longevity and their mortality by their balance. Okay? A weaker and weaker balance directly relates to shorter and shorter lifespans, right? So this is this weird, beautiful two-way street though. So if you improve that awareness, that balance, you are actually improving someone's chances of mortality, although less chance of death, right? You got me? So using your body in its fullest, that's the key, okay? So that's the big high level part. And on the lower level parts of just getting your toes and your feet to fully engage, you'll injure yourself a little less often. You will maybe run just a smidgen faster. You'll be a little bit more adaptive to certain things, right? So it's like a 1% increase here and a 1% increase there, right? You with me?
Mm-hmm.
So those little tiny 1% increases, they accumulate, right? Especially if you imagine, like when you run a super long race, you might be like a super long race. You're going 50,000 steps, 70,000 steps, you know? Like, think of if you are biomechanically just off slightly for 70,000 steps, that matters, that accumulates, okay? All right, so,
Any more toga?
oh yes. Now, so we did the little toes under, we did the big toe under.
Yeah.
You can do it like, rather than trying to tuck the heel down, you could do the reverse where you're trying to bring it forward, okay? You see this?
Yeah.
So the little toes go under, but you're bringing this forward, trying to get in that full upward extension, rather than the flexion of down, the extension of up of the big toe, independent of the little toes. And then you can also do the same, where your big toe goes back again, and your little toes are forward. So now the emphasis is that full forward extension of the little toes. Okay? The reason why you're doing these separate, big toe and little toes, that separation is because the big toe is the major mover when you're running, when you're moving. It's the thing that does the work. The little toes don't necessarily need to do the work. And if you're doing a lot of work with your little toes, yeah, you feel it.
I feel it
All in the shin?
all the way up.
All in the shin, even into the shin, right? Yep.
All the way up to here.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
Gil needs to do that.
What?
Gil needs to do that.
Yeah.
He's been talking about the top of his feet.
His foot.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. So here's the next thing. Okay. Now we talked about that. There's like the up-down strength. Now let's talk about the splaying, the side-to-side stuff. So this is something that I also actively work on. Right. If I were not trying, my toes would like kind of come together like this. Okay. But when so my camera can see that. Right. But what I work on is I plant my big toe, and that's another thing. Getting coordination and awareness so you can actually like individually plant your big toe and then splay the other toes out and away from it. Okay. Again, I've worked on this for at least 2 years. Okay. There we go.
I got you.
All right. So big
My
toe.
kids can do that.
My yoga.
See, right?
Especially the ones
When
who
they're
don't wear
little.
shoes.
Right. When they didn't wear shoes. Right. They probably didn't wear much shoes when they were really super little. Right. So big toe plant, splay toes out. Come on, you guys.
It doesn't even move.
Now, what can help? Especially in the beginning, okay, is you yourself push your big toe down, and then you try to move the other ones out away from it. Okay, give it the support and help, the guidance it needs. Let's get in there. Now, can you guys detect any? Can you get any movement from that outer toe? Can you get any movement from there?
No, it doesn't move. It's just hanging on. It's just dead. And
I can.
Dead.
My mom and I can do it. My
that was
brother
wicked.
can't.
It's
mom
like you
and
play
I
the piano with
can.
those toes.
My mom and I can do it, but
Right.
my
Your
My
brothers
brothers-
and your father have the potential. They just haven't done the training. Okay, so it just
Don't do it with a finger.
yes. It just takes some time. It can take a long time. Seriously, guys. Like I said, I've worked on this for at least probably.
What do you mean by worked on this?
Like I have
Like
actually
every day?
like every
Are
day.
you kidding me?
I'm
like
not kidding.
sitting like on the
Every-
toilet, like moving your feet.
Every time I'm sitting
That's
at,
a great
if
time.
I'm at a desk in my bare feet, I'm trying to move my toes. Anytime I have access to my feet, I'm trying to move my toes all times. Okay,
No one tried it.
I'm trying.
Moving
I
the
sit on the toilet, I move my toes, right?
Oh, that
In the
one
shower.
moves. That one's
Hey, we have life.
It wasn't dead.
Okay,
You're
It's
batting
alive.
500.
that's right.
I don't know-
50-50.
I don't know what I did to get it to move now. Now that I put it on the spot, it won't do it.
Yeah, just performance
I
anxiety.
saw it just go.
There was a twitch of life. It's alive. Okay, so, like I said, your feet change much slower than your hands. Your feet have been encased in shoes your entire life. We all are Americans, this is what we do. And so you have had no coordination built up with your feet, other than being in shoes, right? So be patient and nice with yourself. This will take a lot of time, okay? So, now that's foot exercises. We talked about the strike, so avoiding that heel strike. We talked about that midfoot landing.
Yeah,
Right.
You march. and
Yep,
you
that's the
forward.
idea. Now, stride. We could talk about hours about stride, okay? But those are some of the concepts I would like for you to kind of look at, right? Making sure your shoe is flat in its support structure, because you don't want to overly shift the weight forward. So I got all these shoes back here as examples. This brand's called Ultra. All right. So the thing I like about this shoe is, now I'm not paid for any of this stuff. I'm really not. In fact, it's funny when I complained about limbs, two limbs. I'm like, hey, come on, they didn't do a good job of addressing my concern. They really didn't. And then they even like, oh well, if you're advertising our shoes so much, you should consider the affiliate program. I'm like, this is in no way the kind of response. What I was expecting was like a high level executive response.
Yeah.
Because I even flat out said, I'll even tell you the stuff I like about your shoe and the stuff you don't like. I'm a chiropractor. I do a lot of running. I've done a lot of various stuff. I've recommended stuff. So I can give you good stuff if you want it. And then there was like nothing.
Yeah.
Chirp chirp. It's a small company, so I was expecting them to be a little bit better about this. You got me? You got me, limbs? Okay. All right. So now I'm talking about ultras. So there. All right. So anyway, so the thing that I like about this shoe is it's called heel neutral. I think they even coined that term, where the rear is basically the same thickness as the front. So your foot is on a flat surface. Okay. Now the thing I don't prefer is they do give arch support, and I actually feel in my own feet there's like I've come to not prefer it. It feels like a weakness in my foot if I wear these too much. However, they're still good shoes. They're nice and wide at the toe. All my longest runs I do in these. And if I'm on really jagged terrain, I'll definitely run in these because they're thicker.
Yeah.
So there's a
I
lot
was
about the shoe I really
wondering,
like. What?
Mine are so thin, I feel a hot haven coming up. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering, is it a bad thing, or you prefer to have a bit thicker?
Yeah, right. So like some of that will be your own foot getting used to it. You are wearing socks, right? So, some of that is preference. These shoes, for instance, these are the limbs, and I've done. You can see they're pretty well worn. I've done a lot of running these, lots and lots of running, and I'll run on these on trail too. But it has to be not the most rugged trail. Like if it's really jagged, it'll hurt a little bit, right? So if it's more moderate or lesser trail, I will run these, and I happily will run in these on the street. Okay, and again and of course like these are some things I like about these shoes. Like
They're so light.
oh yeah,
I mean,
they're as light as they
picked it up
get.
and I was like, wow. Nice
Yeah.
shoe.
Super soft and comfortable. They also have a nice wide toe area. Oh, of course, it's neutral. Narrow heel, right? So it gives you because if you look at our foot, right, the shape of our foot, the heel is narrow. The toe area is broad, and you want your shoe to allow that movement. There's a lot of shoes I see that the heel is really big and fat, and the heel, in fact, the contact surface to the ground of the heel section is every bit as wide as the toe section. So what that does is it magnifies our body's movement and our pronation, our supination, it can accentuate the stresses, particularly on our knee, and somewhat on our shins, depending. The downer about these shoes for me, honestly, has been that they will shrink if they get wet and you have them under any heat whatsoever. Like I had a pair shrink when I just let sit in the sunlight to dry. They shrank. And then this pair shrank a little bit when I had them. We have a room dehumidifier and it blows like room temperature air. And I had them on it and it still shrank. What? Yes, I have a dehumidifier. Yes. So yeah, so they shrink unfortunately. So you gotta dry them without heat. So right. But beyond that, like these are also great shoes. They're like my favorite everyday kind of shoe.
And they're vegan.
They're vegan. They're vegan. Total vegan, and every other good thing. You know, hippie company, good stuff, right? So, if you want to work on your toe movement and your toe engagement, these would be a fine option. I've done a lot of running in these as well. They are heel neutral, where they're totally flat front to back. The downers here is that they are pretty thin, and so if you are on tough terrain, you're gonna feel it. The toes only have bottom support. They don't have lateral cover, so you could step on a stick and like stab yourself. It can happen. I've done it. Also, there is absolutely zero resistance to water whatsoever, right? So like I can splash through a puddle in these and not get my socks wet. These, basically any puddle, I'm gonna get wet. My socks are gonna be wet, okay? Now, the socks, speaking of these shoes, the socks that I like is the toe socks, okay? These guys, the reason why I went to these socks is when I was running, I'd have my toes rubbed together when I'm wearing regular socks, but my toes are rubbed together and I'd get a little blister between my toes. So when I wear toe socks,
even with your non-toe shoes?
Even with my non-toe shoes, whenever I'm running, I always wear these now. I never get blisters between my toes. It's very pleasant. I recommend. Okay, and this brand is Injinji. That one, the Injinji brand. Okay, I'm not being paid. All right, so there's that. Then there's these. Okay, so these are called Lunas. They're from the guy from Barefoot Ted. These are his brand, right? So they are actually a little bit more durable, comfortable than these guys, believe it or not. So I can run on rocks a little more comfortably on these than these. The catch is if you flick a rock up underneath, well then you're stepping on a rock, right? So but you can just kind of like this when you're running and keep going and the rock will fly out. These are also, of course, they're light. They are wonderfully cool. Like, you know, when you run in the heat of Georgia, your feet are getting air, which is wonderful.
Do you wear your socks?
I am not Canadian, so I cannot bring myself to wear socks and sandals at the same time. Can't do it. My wife, she's Canadian. She has the pass. She can do that. I cannot. So I don't wear my socks with these. And so the bottom skin of my feet are used to socks. So if I'm running, like if I hit like longer miles, like when I remember actually the distinction. It was when I was hitting 9 miles in a run in these, my the bottom skin of my feet were like, because I'm getting like
I'm just impressed that you
blister.
ran that many miles in sandals. I've never heard of that before.
Yes.
Mine's blown.
Yes. So my personal experience was a little lesser miles. Yeah, it's okay, but more miles, if your skin's a little sensitive, then get a little bit. Oh, another thing I found too is if you're running, in the blazing heat of the Georgia sun, this surface can get hot, believe it or not, right? So like your feet just getting hot from the sun, but still.
It's sunburned.
Yes, and you'll get funky tan lines on your feet. It's true. but the air cooledness of these are really nice. So you get your gives and takes on these things. But if I have to run terrain that I don't know what's coming, if I have to run really long miles, or if I'm running on much rougher terrain, these are the winners for me. Okay, Ultras. All right.
Those are the superiors.
Ultra Superior, that brand. And I actually was talking with I was at a race and there was a rep there selling shoes. I'm like, hey, listen, there's a few details around this shoe that could get a little better, then they'd be perfect. And she's like, what? So she actually responded the way that that someone should, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so if this were a little different, if that angle were a little better, this thing, these would be perfect. She's like, oh, cool. I'm like, you can pass it on. She's like, I will. So maybe she will. Who knows? All right, so bringing back to you, those are shoes. more about your bodies. Any other specific questions about bodies? Any concerns, questions? Go.
Maybe not. Okay, I guess how to get started from 0 miles per day to a healthy amount of running per day.
All right.
Or every other day. How do you start, and what is healthy?
That's an excellent, excellent question. And I'm going to answer that from a couple different angles, okay? So this actually still will apply to everybody, even experienced runners, okay? So the first thing to look at is your body getting enough rest in between? Okay. Honestly, this might not be the first thing. There's lots of things to look at. I'm just the first thing I'm talking about. Okay. Is your body getting enough rest in between? And the way that you look at that is with your heart rate. Okay. Now I'm going to go on a long tangent about heart rate stuff. Okay. So the idea is, if you look at, like, imagine the factors when you're going for a run. There's your distance. There is, you could maybe you could just narrow it down to like 2 factors in general. It's like how much effort you're putting into it and how much distance you run. Okay, so effort, you could look at like how much the timing you've ran a certain distance, like how fast you're running. You know, you could look at that. There's different things about speed. You know, there's your distance and there's your time. So it's all fact, right? But if we took some of those details away and just looked at how high your heart rate gets, that's a measure of your effort, your heart rate. Okay, so this comes from a running expert. His name is Phil Maffetone. Okay, and he has this thing called the Maffetone method, and I'm a fan of it, and I trained by it. And I know there's people with all kinds of varying opinions, and some like it, some don't care for it as much. But you're again at my lecture, so you're hearing my opinion. Okay. So this is this guy. He did all these kinds of science and research and X stuff, and he's a chiropractor too, actually. But he was really well known for being like exercise physiology guy and trainer guy for running and all that stuff. And he trained some of the best triathletes ever. There's this guy named Marcus Allen who basically broke all the records, set all the records for like a decade of the Ironman in Hawaii, like the Ironman race, and it took really 10 to 20 years for people to actually start beating his records with all the current types of technology. He had an old bike that's really heavy, and they have the better stuff now. It took people a long time to catch up to this guy. This guy took Maffetone's advice, okay? And his advice boiled beautifully down into a very short statement is this. What you do is you take the number 180 and you subtract your age from it. So me, I'm 40 years old. This is easy math. 180 minus 40 is 140. Okay? At 140 beats per minute, my body's metabolism and physiology will be, basically it comes down to, at 140 beats per minute, my body is still burning fat instead of needing to burn sugar for more fuel. Okay, so your body will burn fat or sugar. Okay? Your body has a very small amount of sugar it can burn, and it's usually a fast, quick burn. Okay? Your body, all of our bodies, even like pipsqueak me, okay, has plenty of fat to use for energy. See, your brain cannot go without energy. I think it can go maybe 2 seconds, but if you get to 2.5 seconds without any energy, you basically die. You start having stroke. Okay? So your brain cannot go without energy. So your body, through our evolution, has gotten very good at making sure there's a store of energy. So your body will preferentially, like, let's say, if you're eating fatty stuff, let's say, humans, the human animal is really good at storing fat. We get fat really well, much better than most other animals. You know, most animals don't get fat as well as we do because our body's good at storing it just in case, because we can't go without it, right? So we have lots of fat to use, and our body prefers not to use it. It would rather just use the quick shot of sugar. Okay, so if you do 180 minus your age, and you keep your heart rate at that number, your body is using your fat to give you energy to run. Okay, wait. So as you're using fat to run, to move, you will have sustained energy, okay, for a long time. Like, as you train it, it can be a really, really long time, okay? Now, if you go towards above that heart rate, your body switches over and starts drawing sugar and burning sugar, okay? Now, when you burn sugar, you can't last as long. It's a very short supply. And then that's when you have the, I can't go any further, okay? Because you've run out of that fuel, all right? So I would say that in the beginning, to start running, get something that can measure your heart rate, okay? I have a watch with lots of watches. Don't get a watch that has the metal contact, because a lot of people's skin can be very easily irritated by the metal contact. Get a watch that has a little green light that flashes. Okay, that's UV light, and it will detect your heart rate through your skin change color. Okay, you can get one of those chest straps, and those are actually even better. They measure your heart more reactively, more responsively, but you don't have to. You can just get a simple wristwatch that measures your heart rate. And so as you're moving along, and you're looking at your heart rate, making sure that it is below that number, okay? And let's say you're going along slow and everything's fine, and let's say you reach a slight hill and your heart rate goes boop, 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 above it. You have to slow down. Now, let me give you an example of this. In my own training, I'm doing this. My wife taught me about this. She talked about this for a couple of years before I finally listened to her, right? And so I could run, so I'm running, I would run, in the ballpark of an 8-minute mile, right? And so I started doing this and keep my heart rate low. And it was so agonizingly boring because I had to run like over a 19-minute mile. 19 minutes. You can walk 19-minute mile. Okay? So this is how fast I ran. This was my run, right? To keep my heart rate, because my heart rate was used to getting high. My physiology was used to burning sugar. Okay, so I kept it low and ran really slow. In a mile. And the next week, I kept my heart rate the same, and I ran a 17-minute mile. And the next week, I kept my heart rate the same, and then I ran a 16.5-minute mile, and so on, right? So even though my effort was staying the same, my heart rate was staying the same, my body was getting more and more accustomed to burning fats and using it more efficiently. And the best I ever did was I kept my heart rate at around 140, and I was I just scraped the 8-minute mile marks. I was more in like the low nines. So we're in the ballpark of a 9-minute mile and I was not breathing heavy. I was breathing comfortably through my nose, holding a conversation just fine, not breaking that much of a sweat, and could go and go and go. Okay. I remember one time I ran up Kennesaw Mountain, and I was doing a long run that day. I was running, and I ran up all the way Kennesaw Mountain, and I'm keeping my heart rate, and as I'm running to the top, it was a moment of like me bragging about myself. This guy's like, "Damn, you're really fit," because I wasn't breathing heavy, because it was just a slow progression of training. And I worked on that. That's probably 4 years. Okay. So that's how I would start. Okay. All right. So keeping your heart rate. Now, if you're just beginning, you actually want to probably bump it down by 5 more beats. So like you're just beginning, right? Other people who are currently running, if you want to try this method, you just take your age minus 180. But if you're just starting running, you take your age, or 180 minus your age, and then 5 more, right? To keeping your heart rate even lower. So to give more chance to get accustomed to it. Okay? Any questions about that?
No, but I'm interested now to see how high my heart rate got, because it's up, and it's up for a while.
Right.
Versus
so that necessarily means your body is good at burning sugars. It prefers to burn sugars. And so remember how I said how you can do it in a way that's not ideal for your body, but your body's so adaptable and you can push it, right? But it's so much harder to push it. Or you could shift how you're doing it, and then it becomes much easier to accomplish the same thing if you're just doing it a little differently. How high?
It ended up getting up to, let me close that. The
How are you
highest.
tracking it? You like wear
My Garmin has that green light.
It's
that-
an optical sensor is what they call them.
Optical
Ferguson.
So my max heart rate during the run I did before that is 3 miles was 188. My average was 156.
So
I'm 32, so it should be like 140.
148. So you weren't far with your average, but it was still over. And really, all it takes is a beat. 1 beat, 2 beats over, and your body's shifting into its more sugar burning metabolism.
that'll show you like the front half was good, and then I was
Some
like,
apps can-
gotta go.
Some apps can even, I don't know if Apple Watch has any of these, but they have where it can actually alert you when you're out of. You can
Yeah, that's
choose the
cool.
range.
But yeah,
Beeps at you?
this one you can
Yeah.
you can set it up.
That's cool.
I don't know if the Apple Watch has that.
All right, so that is measuring your heart rate during your activity, keeping your effort the same, keeping getting your metabolism trained to give you an abundance of energy for a long, sustained period of time. Now, I ran a long race a year ago now, and it was a 33-mile race. You remember, I've told this story many times. It was a 33-mile race through the North Georgia mountains. Okay, and what I ate in the morning was a bunch of nuts and some coconut milk and fatty stuff. And then during the race, during the 33 miles of the race, I basically had 2 of these things, which is coconut oil and macadamia nut butter. It's basically, they call this an F-bomb for fat bomb, right? And on the back of it they say, this is not a low-fat food, not even close. You know, it's kind of cute. You know, you can take a look at that.
Yeah.
So,
I think I've had one of those before.
they might be an acquired taste, but I found them good anyway. And it just the consumption of the fat, your body, it's rich energy rather than sugar that burns off and then you're done and you crash, right? It's rich, sustained energy. Okay. All right. So that's a food snack I recommend. Okay.
Do you have to train your body to, so like the ketogenic diet is really big right now, people doing carb cycling and stuff. I mean, do you need to, would it be stupid of me to not be practicing keto or carb cycling and then before a race decide I'm gonna just put, eat fat today and no carbs and see how it goes?
Well,
Is that detrimental then to your race, or should you kind of prime your body?
Doesn't matter
The
what length of
safe-
a race.
the safe thing for me to say would be, you kind of want to go into the race the way you've been training.
Yeah.
Don't change something up right before, right? Now the reality is, I don't know how your body would respond. It might do well with it, but then again, your body does like its rhythms. It does like its routines, and so it's tough to say. I don't know.
So you only had 2 of these that whole race?
The whole race. Now I got home and I ate a giant steak. It was beautiful. I pre-bought it
Yeah, but you
We knew that
Oh yeah,
was-
this is my post-race
all of
meal.
those, but
What?
just 2 of these.
Well, I had a big breakfast of like a big bowl of coconut milk. I had humongous amounts of calories and fat, early in that morning, and then just 2 of those.
How many hours were you working out?
How long did that race take
Yeah.
me? Well, I had it calculated in my mind now. It was like 7.5 hours.
Yeah, so okay.
Like 7.5 hours of running. It was a work day of running.
When you're
You know?
keto and doing more fat based or higher fat based, like you're not as you're satiate. I don't know.
Yeah.
My energy always stayed. I never
Yeah.
got those hunger pangs or
For
felt
sure.
like I needed to eat. It was just really.
No, I just
the 20 grams
Yeah.
of fat is like,
Yeah.
give it to me.
Now, for me, this was a big deal for me because I was hypoglycemic when I was a kid. Like my blood sugar would love to get down because I'd have foods that would spike my sugar up, and then of course it would crash down. And so for me to be able to go long periods of time and not feel like, oh, I'm so hungry, but feel like I'm good. But that was a big accomplishment to get my body comfortably stable to just consume fats and not be weak hungry. Anyway. All right, so, okay, one other part about that, the answer with the heart rate is after you've watched your heart rate during, the way that you can tell if you need to rest the next day would also be through your heart rate, okay? Now this would also take an app, and there is an app that costs like, what was it,
It was 10.
Okay, so $10. So there's an app that's $10. That's called HRV4 training, right? HRV, the number 4 training. I told you about that too, right? So it measures a thing called heart rate variability, HRV. Now, you guys ever heard of that? People at home may not have heard of that. Here's the short version of this. When we breathe in, our heart rate should quicken slightly. When we breathe out, our heart rate should slow slightly. So all moment to moment, breath to breath, our heart rate is kind of going up and kind of going down. The rate, how quick it beats, a little bit up, a little bit down, regularly like this. And that rhythm of increase and decrease of the rate of beating has been really well studied, and more so is happening now. And how well it varies is actually a sign of overall health. It's also been like suggestively linked to people's longevity again. It's like a measure of overall like organ function, like heart. It's a big deal. And your heart rate variability is good, is better. Now, defining better with heart rate variability is a very complex thing, so don't make me define that. Just follow an app. And the apps make it intuitive. The number went up, that's good. The number's down, that's bad, right? Just follow the app. That's what I do, okay? So, because there are a lot of like minute factors in terms of the heart and the beat and all that stuff, and so I don't know all the technicalities of it. But, so if your heart rate variability is going up and good, it means you are ready to train, ready to hit it. Okay? If your heart rate variability is going down, it means you are now fatigued. Your body needs rest. Okay? So I measure my heart rate variability every morning, and I've got a graph of it, and I know what's happening. And so sometimes after a lousy night's sleep, or maybe 1 or 2 or 3 beers that I shouldn't have had, right? Or I really hit it hard the day before or the 2 days before. My body catches up to me, and my body says, okay, based on my heart rate variability, not today, right? Or some days it says, everything's look good. If you have plans to do it, you rock it today, right? So that's the app.
On your off days, do you do other exercise that's not running?
It depends. Sure, you could, but you wouldn't want to hit it too hard. You still want to be mindful of your heart rate. Now, because that depends. Like if someone's going to the gym and really hitting hard, that might be too much too. Okay. Sometimes when you need rest, you really need rest.
Focus on your toga.
Your toga. Okay. Sometimes your body really does need stillness. That truly is the magic of training, is being disciplined and real with your rest. Right? Your body does not build up from your exercise. Your body only builds up when you're resting. The exercise is what breaks us down, kind of, right? And it's our rest that gives us the chance to build up for the next one, So rest is very, very important. Very important. Okay? So, heart rate during and heart rate variability routinely, and then you'll know if you are being good to yourself when you should be. Okay?
And that's to be healthy.
That's to get into a rhythm of running and not harming yourself, and using technology to better listen to yourself. Okay? The other thing too would be, when you're getting started, is you just have to be exquisitely mindful of yourself. I like this story, and I'll probably end with this here. Okay? If you think of football, okay, you have big, strong men with pads slamming into each other. Okay, and then you think of the sport rugby. It's a little less known, but it's basically similar. Big, strong men slamming into each other, but no pads. Okay, so American football or rugby, huge amounts of mass and strength and collision. It's like this, but one with pads, one without. One with protective pads, one without. Which sport has more injuries? You may answer.
Football.
American. Are you sure? The ones that have the pads? You are correct. Okay? The ones that have the pads hurt themselves at a much greater clip than those that don't. Why? Sit and think on it. Why?
Not being very careful.
What?
They're probably throwing all caution to the wind.
While these guys can't throw all caution to the wind. They must stay within physiological limits. Right? They have to stay within what their body is capable of. While these guys don't, and they get hurt more often because of it. Okay? So that is the best short answer I have. If you hurt, don't push through it. Change something. Keep changing something. Get advice about changing something, but you keep mindfully aware of yourself, noticing things. hearing your footsteps, hearing the rhythm of your footsteps, noticing, is my big toe engaging? Am I landing more on my flat foot? And where am I landing? Am I rolling? Am I turning? You can even record yourself. We've kind of played around with this. Like, I've recorded a couple of my friends running in slow motion, and then I gave them advice. It turned out that this advice has been terrible. I'm not going to talk about that. Anyway, the point though is
I'm here to tell the truth.
So I did it
On
for
my
myself
pains.
too. Did it for myself, where I recorded myself running in slow motion, and I'm looking at like how I land and how I roll and move. And that's how I was able to determine, like, oh wait, I'm totally turning out this way. So the more and more awareness and mindful and sensitive you can be to yourself, that will be your answer moving forward. Okay, and then you can apply that in life and everything, right? In all parts of your life. If there's pain in your relationship, in your body, in your mind, in your work, pay attention to it. Don't ignore it. Don't take something for it. Don't numb yourself from it. Turn towards it, and you have power over it. Okay?
So you're just starting?
Running?
Or have you been running?
She's gonna dip her toe into it.
So I pushed too hard. He was giving this example earlier. When I switched to the ultras, I have ultras like he does. Mine's the 4. This is the 3. I think. Yeah. And maybe mine are perfect.
Maybe
Because
they
there's
are.
your advice.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, and I was used to running 5 and 6 miles typically on the weekends. And I did a 7-mile race. And the last mile range just dude's awesome. But it was after that I switched to the ultras, and they are my favorite running shoe now. The limbs I like to walk around in, but I have both. But I was so used to running a certain distance, and I had routes for those distances that I really liked, and then I tried to too quickly get back up to that, and I was having calf pains, and then I was having probably miniature fractures in the shin and all kinds of problems. And I'm just now getting to where I can do again about 4 or 5 miles and kind of enjoy it, But it's taken a few months and a lot of stupid mistakes and a lot of frustrations that I felt because I had this expectation and I had this desire for this kind of made up in my mind, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're just getting started, that's actually like the best time because you don't have this idea like, oh, I should be able to hit 7 miles. I did it last week, right?
That's true.
Yeah, so I think because I was doing like 2 or 3, 4 miles and building up to it, and then I was like, oh man, I'm feeling good. I'm gonna do that 3 days in a row, and then I couldn't run for like weeks, and I was so frustrated.
I'm thinking like stop sign.
Just go to the stop sign.
That would be a great starting point.
But my point is that the beauty is you can start like that, because you have no preconceived notions about what you should be running. So that's awesome, actually.
I guess that the simple takeaway is start slow, okay? Like go whatever distance you're willing to push yourself to, but do it slow. Be slow, and then slowly you'll be faster, okay? But just start slow. All right. Any other questions or comments?
I'm just training for a half in November.
You're gonna rock it.
I'm at 8 miles. So I've already built up to 8 miles. So I don't know if it's the best time to invest in those. In the short amount of time that I have up until the race. I have about a month, and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like you're moving
maybe
along.
After.
Yeah, you're moving along. Like, if you want.
And I don't have any pains really.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
so there's not a big reason to change. There's not a big reason to change. One of the reasons why I changed certain things is because I kept on like I read this book. It's called Born to Run, and it talks about like ultra marathoning. I'm like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
I was one of the many millions of people who are like stupidly inspired by this book, and like then you want to go and do amazing things and you can't do them yet, right? So like I kept on wanting to push myself, and that's what I experienced. I pushed myself, and then something started hurt and wasn't working. Okay, so I had to like break down what I was doing and then start kind of again, and okay, wait, now I'm like something's wrong with this. I gotta change this, and I gotta go a little further, and that's what I experienced. Like I remember reaching a certain distance before. Man, everything was chafing under here. Like, man, I gotta wear like different underwear. Okay, now I handled the chafing problem, and then you reach a new point, you handle a new problem comes up. So you don't have a problem stopping you right now. So it may not be the best idea to change just yet. Okay. If you want to dabble in foot strength growing though, go to a field of grass that you feel safe with. That there won't be hidden sharp things. Right?
Or needles or anything.
Right.
Dog food.
Needles would be more scary than dog poop, but yeah, right. So and just trot around a little bit on natural terrain in your bare feet.
Okay.
You know, do it for 10 minutes. You know, just do it like just 5 minutes. Just trot around a little bit. Run around the field once, giving your feet the chance to feel free. Like, so slowly start building up some strength, and then of course do your continued running with the way you have it. Like, another thing too was honestly, we didn't talk about all kinds of stuff because this could go on and on and on. But like, you know, you do building different kind of pelvic strength and building more strength by like jumping down off of like a step and then a higher step and in your bare feet on a firm surfaces. Like the Russian Olympic team. Remember this story? The Russian Olympic team would have guys slowly work their way up to being able to jump off of like some ladder. Right? It's like
20 feet, isn't it?
It's 20 feet.
20, I think it's 20.
20 feet in their bare feet onto concrete
I think it was 20.
and not hurt themselves doing it.
Wow.
Before they could even
Start running.
train.
Right. So they're building up massive foot strength and leg strength and bone density and the shock absorbing strength, then start training, right?
And they never got injured. That was the story.
Right, right.
Wow.
So,
Okay. Well, I'll
They were
start.
unbreakable.
I will start with that. For sure.
all right, guys.
And the heart rate variable.
Start with
Yeah.
a 20-foot.
Yeah, start this out. Yeah, that's the takeaway. Gosh. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Do you have any other questions? Do you feel complete enough? We could always cover tons and tons more, but thank you guys very much for coming. If you have more questions, ask me. And do you have any other requests for any other type of class? You can think on that. What?
I think maybe, especially with the New Year's right now, like how to start healthy habits and
Good class.
become
How to maintain.
I'm actually skipping my healthy habits class for those
Like,
to be here.
someone who does nothing to someone who wants to start.
Your normal is healthy. Your normal choices are
Right,
the
right.
healthy choices.
Okay, I can mull on that.
It's like
I do
wake
have
up in the morning and do these
Do
5
good
things,
things.
or during the day do these kinds of things.
Well, okay. This is something that we can mull around with. I think I did a little bit of something like that in this past January, actually, but not specifically that. The next class I do have coming up, though, is on October 3rd. It's the first Thursday in the month. So I think it's the 3rd.
So 2 weeks from now.
2 weeks from today. That's a class on living a flourishing life.
That sounds perfect.
I hoped you might like that. It's not about just simply having the experience of being happy. It's because happiness is one component of a bigger, more diverse thing. So I'm going to be talking about all of that, you know. Without giving too much away, well, it's about flourishing, okay? I hope you might be able to join me. You guys, thank you.
Thank
That's all.
you.
What's your shoe size?
9.5.